And right now we're talking Commanders players getting too much or too little love. We just gave you the guys that we think are being undervalued. I went with Zach Ertz on offense and Jeremy Chin on defense. They'll have bigger years than expected.
Dorrance Armstrong on defense and Ben Sinnott on offense. Now, I hope I'm wrong about that one because it means Zach Ertz is healthy and doing what you predict them to do.
Let's go to the other side of the spectrum here. And this one's less fun for Commanders fans to hear. But these are the guys being overvalued that are getting a little too much hype going into the season.
You already discussed the name. To me, Dyami Brown screams this. One more catch in his career in an extra year than Malcolm Kelly had before he was out of football entirely. I've done this dance before. I have read about how good he looks in shorts and a T-shirt. I've seen best shape of his life, hired a private chef, took ballet in the offseason. Whatever the hell it is, he is not a thing. He is a deep threat that doesn't get open deep. I just don't see it. I don't see what they see. Maybe they like his physicality, and he'll be good for blocking. Maybe he's a Josh Morgan 2.0 from 2012, but there's a reason they went and got Noah Brown. I think he'll supersede him and supplant him in some of those two receiver sets. I think it's a lot more Zacchaeus. I just don't see much production. It'll be more than his 12 catches, his gaudy 12 of last year, but it's not a thing where now we have a bona fide number 2 receiver internally.
So it's really, really hard to find a guy on offense other than Dyami Brown, if I'm being honest,
Mm-hmm.
which speaks to the fact that there's not a lot of expectation around the board.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
I went with Jamison Crowder, and it's not like everyone says he's going to have a great year, but we talk about him as in the mix to play a lot. And I just think by the end of the year, he's going to be kind of on the outside looking in, whether he's not on the team or he's deactivated or he's on the bench or what have you. I think it'll be more Zacchaeus, more Noah Brown, more Luke McCaffrey, maybe even more Byron Pringle. If that's not good enough, if you're saying, well, there's not really a lot of expectation for him, I guess I would go with Olamide Zacchaeus, who I actually like fine, but kind of the same deal you did with Dyami Brown, which is to say he caught 10 balls last year in a good offense. Maybe he gets a lot of work early, but I think as the season goes on, ideally, maybe phasing him out's too strong, but I'd like a little more Luke McCaffrey, a little more Noah Brown in the equation. How about on the defensive side of the ball?
I don't like saying this one. I feel bad because I feel bad for the kid, but I just don't see it with Emmanuel Forbes. I think we've talked ourselves into like, this is the perfect recipe. You got Dan Quinn. He was Legion of Boom, you see. And Joe Witt turned Ron Bland into a superstar. Trayvon Diggs before him. Emmanuel Forbes, it's going to happen for real. Nope. I just don't think so. I hope so. It would be nice. It'd be cool. But I think we've talked ourselves into this as a fan base. They're going to give him a shot. I think he's got a shot because he's a first-round draft pick who's under contract no matter what you do. And you could cut him and get rid of him, but you'd have dead cap money for multiple years, and there's not much to it. So you might as well just go out and see if he can play in a year that you're rebuilding, especially on the defensive side of the ball where you were worst in the league last year, and any improvement is good. I just don't think we've got one of these diamonds in the rough that all it took was a little bit better coaching. I don't think we got it.
So, but you get the sense there's a lot of hype for Forbes being good because he's hated on social media by the fan base.
Yeah, but I think the other side of that is this magic bullet recipe that Witt's here, and so is Dan Quinn and their pedigree, and they've coached secondaries, and you just watch, they'll find something. I don't see it. Okay. I hope I'm wrong.
I don't love this answer, but I had a hard time coming up with a good one. So I'll say Bobby Wagner. He's 34. I mean, at some point you would think just inevitably you've got to slow down. It did not happen last year. He made 183 tackles to lead the NFL for the third time in his career. It was, by the way, a career high. Tackles are not the end-all, be-all at his position, but pretty close. And he was a second-team All-Pro. He has been no worse than a second-team All-Pro every single year of his career dating back to 2013. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
From 2014 through 2023, a 10-season run, he has been either one of the top linebackers in the league or the second version, like the top two, basically, inside linebackers in football as voted at year's end. I don't think that'll be the case this year. I'll say it's 140 some tackles, 150 tackles, whatever, but he's not in the top two in All-Pro, falls off a little bit, and maybe because of that, a little bit of overvaluing the fact that while he'll be good, he's not going to be as great as he was last season. And that's just what happens around here. Like, you sign a guy at 34, you pay him after he's been really good for 13 years, and he's starting to think about what's next in his career and following around the commissioner for a day in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, it's just not the same. The motivation isn't quite the same.
Yeah, for every London Fletcher, there's like 7 Jason Taylors, you know what I mean, who are at the same spot in their excellent careers.
Let's go to Bobby in Lovettsville on G&D. What do you got, Bobby?
Hey, what do you say, boys? Great show as always.
Appreciate you, Bobby.
Thank you.
So I think Yep, absolutely. So the player I think is underrated is Jamin Davis. I think that he's going to come out this year and be used in a totally different way, and I think he's going to thrive under this new defense. So I'm very excited about that. The person that I think is overrated because he's listed as a starter is Andrew Wiley. I am so tired of Andrew Wiley. I could not believe they even kept him. Someone needs to tell me he needs to face the opposite direction, like towards your end zone, or that you're going towards, not the other way, like a turnstile. Okay, so those are my two boys. Keep it great.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate you, dude.
Appreciate you. I would have bet against Wiley remaining as the starter at the beginning of the offseason. And then I should say being on the team. And then when he was still on the team at the start of training camp, I would have bet against him emerging as the starter, but they just didn't really address tackle extensively. I mean, they barely are past Cornelius Lucas starting on the left side. And that's just kind of hoping and praying a bit that Brandon Coleman's ready to go, who didn't play in the preseason. So they barely replaced their left tackle. They didn't get to the right tackle yet. But my point that I've made is if Coleman starts on the left side, kick Lucas over to right and sit Wiley. That's definitely a possibility as the year goes on.
Yeah, to me, this is another one where you go, it'd be an $8 million dead cap hit. You move on from Andrew Wiley, right? So, he's on the roster pretty much at that point, right? So there's nothing you could do. So we'll just try to get away with it, or we'll get by. We'll have a good player to his left. We'll have a tight end on that side an awful lot. Run that way, whether it's a strong side, weak side, or whatever. We'll make him better with play fakes. Like a right tackle is a lot better if he's got to block down onto the outside shoulder of a defensive tackle, and you leave the defensive end unblocked because that guy now has to worry about what the quarterback's going to do. You know what I mean? You leave that guy alone, so you're not taking on the superstar. You're not taking on old DeMarcus Ware from back in the day, like Washington had to do in 2012. You're leaving him alone, leaving him for the quarterback to deal with it. Maybe that's the strategy. I'm trying to come up with something as to why they go, no, that's fine at tackle. Not fine to me. I'm with the caller.
Jamin Davis's growth and his attempt now to play on the edge is maybe the biggest story on the defensive side of the ball, but one of the biggest stories for this team this year. I think that's a fun answer. If he were to become a legitimate pass rusher who they wanted to keep around and pay moving forward, that would be a massive development and just a gigantic win for this regime.